All right, so we're back at East Coast Gear Supply, as always, talking with Chase. Now we're talking about custom axles, and when we say custom axles, we don't just mean like an axle for your Jeep, right? You guys can build anything.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about like what's the craziest thing that you've built in the past little while. I'm looking at these weird giant 9-foot wide axles over here.
Yeah, this one is definitely a strange one. It's a swamp race buggy.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're kind of crazy.
So it's maybe 12 inches of water and they ride on top of the water.
Okay.
So super wide, very custom wheel, tire, flotation devices on them. I think the coolest project we ever did, we called it the Pickle Pumper axle.
Okay.
It was a pickle company, Mount Olive Pickle Company, and the machine that drove to the vats of pickles. These vats of pickles were probably 30 feet in diameter, 25 feet tall, full of pickles.
Okay.
And the machine would suck the pickles out and shoot the brine back in and drive down the lanes with vats and vats and vats of pickles. And so their axles completely rusted out in this machine that was probably designed in the 80s. So drove down there, and when the machine was full of pickles, it weighed like 30,000 pounds, but it only needed to go like 5 miles an hour. So we designed a very, very heavy duty, fully powder coated, because the pickle brine juice would get down and start rusting everything. So coating was very important, weight was very important, and making the pickle machine drive.
That's pretty rad.
The Pickle Pumper.
The Pickle Pumper. And you've been able to do that because, as you've said, you have all the building blocks to basically build pretty much any axle, right? So let's just talk through some of the stuff, because that to me is the coolest part of this. This is all new parts, even though some of these parts have, been around forever, right? So let's just run down some of the options that people have at East Coast Gear Supply.
So this is kind of like your CJ or old F-150 knuckle. Wagoneer would have a C like this on it. So we can take this C and build a 5x5.5 or 6x5.5 wheel end package.
Yeah.
Be, your 1310 U-joint, so you can get super joints, you can get a good locking hub. Mild build, but great for your lighter weight vehicles running like a 35-inch tire. And then this is a TJC. So we have the TJC. We do have some WJCs. We have JL, JTCs, JKCs. So with the CN, now we can build anything in that Jeep realm back to OE form. But we can also use this if you had a mining vehicle or industrial vehicle, something like that. Again, not real heavy. We can run 5x4.5 pattern, 5x5. And then we start stepping up into our kingpin, which would run a 1480 joint. So now you're starting to get into a heavier weight class, a 1-ton weight class. We want to build that in 8x6.5 because that's a good match, but we can do that in 5x5.5 and 6x5.5. So you get the big 1480 U-joint, but you keep that smaller wheel pattern if you so choose. Then we've got some ball joint options, which this would be like a 05 plus ball joint option, or there's other wheel end kits that will bolt to this ball joint knuckle that isn't a unit bearing design. So you can go 8x170, 8x6.5. This could be anything. It doesn't have to be a Jeep or even any vehicle. It could be a specialty vehicle that a company or individual is speccing out. And what we're looking at is tire size, weight, cost, all those things. What are you trying to accomplish? Because if you have a specialty vehicle, we've done trailers that drive themselves. And so it's heavy for a time and it just needs to roll, but it also will drive itself. So mass producing, they need to bring the cost down. They're not four-wheeling it.
Yeah.
It's just different mobility solutions. There's an application where we run this ball joint C, 1-ton class, but not extreme, right? 31-inch tire, but a 1-ton class. And then our KP540C, which this is kind of our flagship, baddest boy. This is in the 15,000 pound weight class when we're talking industrial applications or specialty vehicle. And then from an off-road perspective, you don't weigh 15,000 pounds, but you do have a lot of horsepower and you do have 43-inch tire.
And then with all those axle end options, when it comes to the center section, you have tons of options there as well, right?
Correct. 8.5-inch ring gear, 8.9-inch ring gear, a 9 3/4 your Dana 60, and then 10.5 is your 14-bolt, and then 11 1/4 is your Dana 80. So obviously ring gear size grows, strength of the axle grows, weight class grows. So currently, you know, Dana 80 is as big as we go, although right now, and the next evolution will be even bigger than the Dana 80. And again, that's probably not for the Jeep crowd. That's more for the industrial specialty vehicle, heavyweight class.
It just needs that larger center section.
Yeah, you're talking 15,000 pounds.
Yeah, plus.
And you need it unbreakable.
Yeah. And then also, the same goes for the rear, right? You can do semi-float, full float, multiple spline counts, everything, right?
Yeah, so a lot of different wheel and rear options. This would run like a TJ Rubicon brake kit or late model TJ disc brake kit. This is, we call set 20. A lot of people refer to as like the Explorer or the Torino end. So the Torino end, very popular in both car and off-road, off-highway. You can run a set 20 bearing. We actually have a sealed set 20 bearing design, which is neat. A lot of times, set 20 is a great axle bearing, but set 20 axle seals weep. Okay. And there's a few applications that we build for that, like weeping is a non-starter. You know, if it's your off-road truck and it's got a little wetness on that backing plate, it's not that big of a problem. But in one application, there can be absolutely no fluid loss. And so we came up with a sealed set 20 design that we really like, and we build that as a standard just to keep people from having wet backing plates.
Gotcha.
So great wheel bearing, and we kind of solved its fatal flaw.
Okay.
So this is FJ Cruiser or Forerunner, so it'll take the factory brake kit and it will hold the wheel bearing so your ABS stays the same. This is a crazy end that is a secret, but that's for a specialty customer that's 100%. They had very, very specific requests on what they needed the brakes to be and the shafts to be and all these things. And so, you know, we just designed it, made it for them, and it is what it is. Now, this is not necessarily the regular, because a lot of our value add is we already have the building blocks, so you don't have to pay for tooling and all this engineering time. But if you have a specific need in the volume, then we can make anything. Yeah. You know, we'll design it, make it, and fulfill the need. But really, our value add is we already have this stuff, and we have purchased in, you know, large volume, so we bring that cost way down. And Jeep is buying axles, you know, from Dana cheaper than what we can build them, but we have figured out how to bring those specialty vehicle costs down to make your final project viable to the market.
So there you go. East Coast Gear Supply can build you whatever custom axle you want, and it doesn't have to just be one axle. If you need 100 axles, if you have 100 pickle pumpers, was it a four-wheel drive pickle pumper?
Nope.
Well, maybe you need 100 four-wheel drive pickle pumpers for your massive pickle factory. East Coast Gear Supply can build you those axles.